Okay, this should be part 14 of Federalist number 10. If the screen goes dark on you, don't worry. You can just listen. If there's anything that needs to be seen, I'll show it to you. Okay, we get to the paragraph where Madison actually defines or describes faction to us. By a faction, I understand the number of citizens, whether amounting to a majority or minority of the whole, who are united and actuated by some common impulse of passion or of interest adverse to the rights of other citizens or to the permanent and aggregate interests of the community. So we've already looked at this definition quite a few times, but it's beautiful because he says what it means. Either a minority or a majority group that only is looking after their own interest, even if it is against the interest of the bigger community, the larger community. So you hear the words passion and adverse meaning harmful, opposite to the rights of the aggregate other citizens or permanent and aggregate interest of the community. Long-term interest of the majority of the people in the community. There are two methods of curing the mischief of faction. The one by removing its causes, the other by controlling its effects. So there are two ways that we can take action to stop this mischief, this bad thing. To cure this disease, okay, because see, it uses the word cure again, the verb cure. So it looks at faction like a disease, like an awful thing. You can do two things, either remove what causes it, stop it from happening by removing its causes, its origin, or by controlling its effects. Or just when it happens, try to control its effects. Kind of like a disease, if it hits somebody and it's contagious, what you can do is control its effects. Like put the person, if it's a really bad contagious disease, you quarantine it, right? You put a circle around it, you say, okay, this disease is going to have to stay here because it will get others sick and it'll spread in the community. Goes to the next chapter, the next paragraph. There are again two methods of removing the causes of faction. So there are two ways that we can stop it from even happening, right? What causes it, there are two ways that we can block it. The one, by destroying the liberty which is essential to its existence. The other, by giving to every citizen the same opinions, the same passions, the same interests. One of the ways is to destroy the liberty which causes it, because in a free country, people have different talents, people think differently about different things, and normally you're going to find people that will be trying to find people of the same mind, people who have the same opinion. The only way you can stop that, or one of the ways you stop that, is just kill freedom. If there's no freedom, then they're not going to know anything to think any differently. There's no freedom. So he says, this is crazy. We can't do that because we want to establish a government to preserve our freedom and also be good for our safety. And the second way that he says you can remove the causes of faction is by giving to every citizen the same opinions, the same passions, and the same interests. And you know, that cannot be done because we're human beings. That would be like just making us into robots, that all of us have the same feeling, which would be no feeling, the same passion, which would be no passion. So it says, can't make robots out of human beings. So in a way, he's saying there's no way in a free society, if you want the society to actually be free, you cannot remove its causes. You cannot stop it from happening. It is going to happen whether you like it or not. Now, he continues, it could never be more truly said than of the first remedy that it was worse than the disease. Liberty is to faction what air is to fire, an element without which it instantly expires. But it could not be a less folly to abolish liberty, which is essential to political life, because it nourishes faction, than it would be to wish the annihilation of air, which is essential to animal life, because it imparts to fire its destructive agency. So, liberty is to faction what air is to fire. In other words, with liberty, you're going to bring faction. It's kind of like air and fire. Fire would not burn if there's no air. So you cannot come and do this crazy thing and say, okay, I'm going to destroy faction, but the only way you're going to do that is to destroy liberty. And that doesn't make sense at all, because that's what the main thing we want, to form a government to make sure that our freedoms, our liberty is secure, our life and our safety is defended. So it says they go hand in hand. Just like fire exists when there is air, nothing will catch on fire if there's no air. It says the same thing. Faction will automatically exist when there is liberty. So don't even think about trying to stop it, because if you try to stop it that way, you destroy liberty with it, and then it'll be just like society of non-humans, just animals. So don't even think about it. Okay, the next paragraph starts, the second expedient is as impracticable as the first would be unwise. As long as the reason of man continues fallible and he's at liberty to exercise it, different opinions will be formed. As long as the connection subsists between reason and his self-love, his opinions, his passion will have a reciprocal influence on each other, and the former will be objects to which the latter will attach themselves. See, here again he goes and talks about human nature. Okay? And that's why I mentioned some of these books, that it would be good for you to look at them and listen to the lectures. It'll give you an idea of why most of the founders, who were Protestant Christians, and some of the Calvinistic outlook on human nature, as well as other influences on how they saw humanity, human nature, society. Like I said, Scottish Enlightenment, the moral philosophy, and things like that. So here he takes that Calvinistic note that human nature is not to be trusted. And that idea of sin that stains humanity or stains most human beings from time of birth, that only a small percentage will be given grace by God, everybody else not. So he says, you're not going to make people into thinking the same way, the same exact thing, the same fashion. So don't even think about trying to stop it by making everybody think the same, feel the same. Because the minute you let their humanity is such that the minute you let them think for themselves, they think of 1,000 other ways to get where they want to go, sometimes legally, sometimes not, sometimes morally, sometimes not. So in a sense, even though he looks at it in a negative way, but he says we are not robots. Human beings are not robots. And thank God for that. That's what makes humanity wonderful, because we are different, and if given a chance, we flourish. Now, this is what I'm saying. I'm just going to step out of Federalist number 10 for a few seconds. I feel like if our talents are given a chance, if we are not looked at like numbers, because that's what most governments look at their citizens like, just numbers, somebody that they can push around, get taxes from, so that they can run the government, so that they can give or let corporations and rich people take a majority of the share, instead of looking at human beings as possibilities, as every human being being possible, having a potential to give great wealth, and I mean not financially, but great wealth in a cultural way, to humanity. If we are allowed to flourish and show our potential and not looked at like a number, just somebody to use or abuse. So we'll continue later.